Good morning, gardeners, and welcome to Friday, August 25th. My name is Catherine, and I created a show called Good Morning Gardeners, even though I can't grow green things, because I am referring to gardening metaphorically. We're planting the seeds for a better day. We're starting our morning by getting in the right mindset to cultivate a better life for ourselves, better communities, and a better world. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to add Good Morning Gardeners to your morning routine. I do my best to wake you up with positive and mentally stimulating ideas, but sometimes I do miss things. So if you have something to add to the ideas I discussed today, please chime in the comments section below. Today's daily Stoic reading, titled Respect the Past, but Be Open to the Future, begins with a quote from Seneca. Won't you be walking in your predecessor's footsteps? I surely will use the older path, but if I find a shorter and smoother way, I'll blaze a trail there. The ones who pioneered these paths aren't our masters, but our guides. Truth stands open to everyone. It hasn't been monopolized. And the authors add, traditions are often time-tested best practices for doing something. But remember that today's conservative ideas were once controversial, cutting-edge, and innovative. This is why we can't be afraid to experiment with new ideas. In Seneca's case, he might be embracing some new philosophical insight that improves on the writing of the day. In our case, perhaps a breakthrough in psychology improves on the writing of Seneca or Marcus Aurelius. Or perhaps we have a breakthrough of our own. If these ideas are true and better, embrace them. Use them. You don't need to be a prisoner of dead old men who stopped learning 2,000 years ago. So once again, I love that one, and I really do feel like it builds on yesterday's daily Stoic reading, which was a call to take ideas from anywhere, even from people you don't totally agree with or maybe don't really like. Just like you can evaluate the merit of any specific idea separately from the person you heard the idea from, you can evaluate an idea separately from the tradition it's a part of. I grew up in a very dogmatic environment where I wasn't really encouraged to think for myself, but rather to adopt the ideologies of my family and the religion that they were involved with. Because I hated this environment, I escaped it as soon as I could, and I moved out of my parents' house when I was just 17 years old. I graduated from high school while living in my own apartment and then enrolled myself in college. During my first year, as a freshman, I took Biology 101. This was probably the first science class of any real value that I had ever had. It was the first time in my life that I learned the true definition of evolution. It wasn't long before I had deconverted from the religion I was born into, and I've called myself an atheist ever since. Because this is my background, I think I've had a tendency toward disregarding old ideas and shunning the writings of dead old men. Ever since my deconversion, I've had this perspective that things in the past were deeply flawed and, stupid, and that for most of human history, most people have passed their ideas on the same way that my family passed ideas down to me, through indoctrination. Even though I have adopted a viewpoint that is it has become more and more moderate over the years, I still got a twinge of satisfaction from that last sentence about dead old men. And I think that this is because, from, the way I see it, so many people waste their precious time reading ancient books again and again, even though these books have already been studied again and again by people who came before them. Not to mention, in many cases, translated and edited again and again, to the point that I seriously doubt that very much of value can be extracted from these books anymore. And if you are a religious person who likes to study religious texts, I know that this statement might strike you as misguided or even offensive. And for the record, I am open to the idea that I'm wrong about this. After all, every individual is different and on their own unique path of self-discovery, learning, and growth. So I can't say, what kind of reading is going to be valuable for you. Only what kind of reading is really valuable for me. And I should also mention that I am aware that many people don't care about things like self-discovery, learning, and growth at all. So many people don't even have a reading habit or any kind of learning habit. So if you have any kind of habit that fosters self-growth in any way, I applaud you. And as I mentioned in a previous episode, I have recently adopted the perspective that progress is a spiral staircase. If you haven't watched that episode, which is simply titled Progress is a Spiral Staircase, I will link it in the description of this video. The basic idea is that humans improve their ideas by iterating on older ideas. It's impossible to build something great by starting from scratch. We need each other to collaboratively develop better ways of doing things, just like we need the ideas and technologies developed by the people who came before us, who have provided us a starting point that is higher than where they started. And hopefully, the ideas and technologies that we develop will provide an even higher baseline for the humans who come after us. Now, I got this spiral staircase idea from Team Human by Douglas Rushkoff. If you haven't heard me mention this book before, you must be new here, because right now this is my favorite book and my top recommendation. I'm going to read a section from this book to you today, but I highly recommend that you grab your own copy at the link in the description of this video. So, Douglas writes, "The Japanese built a nuclear power plant right down the hill from the stone tablets that their ancestors put in the ground warning, 'Don't build anything below here.' The markers, called Tsunami Stones, were placed centuries ago by villagers who had experienced the region's devastating earthquakes and floods. Moderns ignored the advice, believing that their building techniques far surpassed anything their ancestors could have imagined. The villagers had recognized the patterns of natural disasters, as well as the fact that the cycle repeated too infrequently for every generation to witness it. But their efforts to communicate their wisdom failed to impress a civilization without patience for pattern recognition or a sense of connection to the cyclical nature of our world. Weather, ecology, markets, or karma, what goes around comes around. What the ancients understood experientially, we can today prove scientifically, with data and charts on everything from climate change to income disparity. But these facts seem not to matter to us unless they're connected to our moment-to-moment experience. Cold, abstract numbers carry the whiff of corrupt bureaucracy. With politicians actively undermining the importance of factual reality, NASA's climate data may as well be tsunami stones. Phenomena such as climate change occur on timescales too large for most people to understand, whether they're being warned by scientists or their great-grandparents. Besides, the future is a distancing concept, someone else's problem. Brain studies reveal that we relate to our future self the way we relate to a completely different person. We don't identify that person as us. Perhaps this is a coping mechanism. If we truly ponder the horrific possibilities, everything becomes hyperbolic. We find it easier to imagine survival tactics for the zombie apocalypse than ideas to make the next 10 years a bit better. The endless succession of inspirational talks by well-meaning techno-solutionists with patented world-saving ideas doesn't make the future feel any more real either. Let's shoot reflective particles into the atmosphere, pour iron fillings into the oceans, and dig pod tunnels for California commuters. These environmental moonshots put off sustainable abundance, as if it's something we can achieve only with yet more profitable high-tech innovations. The narratives all depend on linear, forward-moving, growth-based progress, rather than the recognition of cycles or the retrieval of wisdom. Such utopian projects make heroes out of the billionaires who envision them, while helping us justify our refusal to make any substantive changes to the way that we live right now. If we bought fewer smartphones, we could enslave fewer children to produce them. If we ate less red meat, we would reduce our carbon footprint more than if we gave up our automobiles. Right now, today, we can do those things. We don't need to build a network of solar-powered Adobe homes on Mars. The future is not a discontinuity or some scenario we plan for so much as the reality we are creating through our choices right now. We just need to observe the flows, recognize the patterns, and apply them everywhere we can. We can apply the regenerative principles of organic soil management to making the economy more circular, just as we can derive an entire ethical framework from the single practice of veganism. We can apply the insights of permaculture practitioners to education, social justice, and government. Look for larger patterns, learn from elders, understand and leverage natural cycles. To begin, though, we have to touch ground. We humans need to become flow observers and pattern recognizers in our local realities and communities. Only then can we begin to have any sense of what is happening beyond our immediate experience and forge solidarity with others. So, in the part of the book that I just read from, Douglas Rushkoff is tying together multiple elements that he has already discussed earlier in the book, but I hope you can take away the idea this morning how important it is to incorporate the wisdom of those who came before us. Not that science should be disregarded or that new innovations are totally useless, but it's certainly unwise to disregard everything that came before us simply because we think we can do everything better. Now, for our feel-good moment today, I'm going to read again from Team Human, and I'm actually going to read the last little bit of this book to you. Douglas writes, "We mistakenly treat the future as something to prepare for. Companies and governments hire scenario planners to lay out the future landscapes as if it were a static phenomenon. The best they can hope for is to be ready for what is going to happen. But the future is not something we arrive at so much as something we create through our actions in the present. Even the weather at this point is subject to the choices we make today about energy, consumption, and waste. The future is less a noun than a verb, a thing we do. We can futurize manipulatively, keeping people distracted from their power in the present and their connection to the past. This alienates people both from their history and from their core values. Or we can use the idea of the future more constructively, as an exercise in the creation and transmission of values over time. This is the role of storytelling, aesthetics, song, and poetry. Art and culture give us a way to retrieve our lost ideals, actively connect to others, travel in time, communicate beyond words, and practice the hard work of participatory reality creation. There's only one thing going on here. As much as we think we are separate individuals, we're wired from birth and before to share, bond, learn from, and even heal one another. We humans are all part of the same collective nervous system. This is not a religious conviction, but an increasingly accepted biological fact. We can't go it alone, even if we wanted to. The only way to heal is by connecting to someone else. But it also means that when one of us is disturbed, confused, violent, or oppressed, the rest of us are too. We can't leave anyone behind, or none of us really makes it to wherever we think we're going. And we can't just stay confused and depressed ourselves without confusing and depressing everyone who is connected to us. This is a team sport. You are not alone. None of us are. The sooner we stop hiding in plain sight, the sooner we can avail ourselves of one another. But we have to stand up and be seen. However imperfect and quirky and incomplete we may feel, it's time we declare ourselves members of Team Human. On being called by God, the biblical prophets would respond, Hineni, meaning I am here. Scholars have long debated why a person should have to tell God that they are present. Surely they know God sees them. Of course, the real purpose of shouting Hineni is to declare one's readiness, the willingness to step up and be a part of the great project, to call out into the darkness for others to find us. Here I am. It's time for us to rise to the occasion of our own humanity. We are not perfect by any means, but we are not alone. We are Team Human. So, for our focus moment today, I invite you to consider your own power. It's easy to fall into the mental trap of believing that the world is a chaotic swirl of chance that can't be influenced at all, or the trap that of thinking that people smarter and better than you have everything under control, and all you have to do is what you're told, and things will turn out all right. It's true that the world can be chaotic, but your sphere of influence is greater than you think, and you have more power than you think to change your life and your community for the better. It's also true that there are plenty of smart people in the world who are working to make the world a better place, but you are a smart and capable person too. And not even the smartest person in the world can go it alone. To begin to wrap your head around how powerful you really are, think about what you have already done in your life. Think about what you have accomplished. Think about how far you've come. Think about how much you have overcome. And then, after you have dwelt upon those ideas for a while, begin to brainstorm what you can do next. You are already so much better than you were when you accomplished those things in the past. And the more you believe that you are capable of, the more you will become capable of. For our last reading today, I have to share the words of The Ancestors by Ehime. For August 25th, she writes, "As you started to rise in your power, did people around you begin acting strange? That's because they only liked you when they thought you were beneath them. No matter, keep rising." I hope you found this helpful, and I hope you have a wonderful day. I will speak with you again on Monday.